Assalamu alaikum. If you could type in the chat box if you hear me, that would be great. I'm Seema Imam, chair of the ISLA, the Islamic School League of America. And I'm hoping tonight to launch something that perhaps the ISLA will be working on a regular basis. I'm hoping, inshallah, that we'll do that. I want to talk about Iste standards. And as I think about the Iste standards and Islamic schools, I think there are lots and lots of directions that I could take that conversation in. And so I gave it some thought, and I really wanted to make some effort towards webinars that would last a half an hour, and try to get the Muslim community into some professional development for our Islamic schools that we could do in, short, quick, maybe regular, maybe, without too many parameters, get ourselves going. And Iste standards are one of the perfect ways, I think, to meet the, rapidly surmounting needs of our schools and children in general across the country. So that's the gist of what I wanted to do tonight. So I want to spend a moment just introducing myself a little bit in a different way. As a lifelong educator, mother and grandmother, I spent 16 years in the Chicago public schools back in the day when we had management by objective, and we had absolutely no recess. We got out at 2:30 because recess was put at the end of the day. And think about that for a moment. The illogical kind of thinking that was exactly where I had planted myself in the Chicago public schools. And alhamdulillah I did, because from there my profession took off, and went to become a principal of an Islamic school where I was able to put the thumbprint on a brand new school. And for the last 23 years, I've been teaching teachers. So I've had a significant amount of time to think about how schooling, and particularly Islamic schooling, can develop. And I've seen so much development. I'm so pleased, alhamdulillah, with all the work, all the effort that our schools have gone through and succeeded in so many ways that to think about me sitting here tonight just spending a half an hour on a webinar to talk about the International Society of Technology Educators, the Iste standards. When many people out there in the audience or other places could easily be doing the same thing. So I hope that in the chat box tonight that you would write where you're from, first and last name, where you're situated, demographics, city, state, and then the name of your Islamic school, if you wouldn't mind doing that in the chat box. That would be great. Later we'll use the chat box for some questions. And if we don't do it tonight, at some point we'll turn on the question and answers. We'll unmute people. We'll make this an effort that allows us the conversation that Karen Keyworth started many years ago in a written format on the IECN. So I want to say to you all tonight that if you're not on the IECN, please get on the IECN. Contact Shaza Khan. You probably know about this because of the IECN, but also I want to say to you, get your teachers, administrators, other people around you who are working with students to be there so that our announcements get heard. This Thursday night, we're going to do a Twitter chat. And that's an opportunity to write questions and answers and tweet out. So I'm going to come with 7 questions that follow up from this talk tonight. 7 questions or 7 comments, and that you'll be able to comment. So you need your Twitter handle, and all that'll go out on the IECN listserv. So I think that kind of situates us my attachment to the ISLA has been for many years that there was a need for Islamic schools to be connected. And Karen Keyworth, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rest her soul and grant her Jannah in the highest station. We owe a lot to all of the organizers of schools, and this idea of ISLA being an arching organization that can help generate that connection. Right now, we're talking about technology and connection. So I'm going to leap into that. So since the 90s, I have been involved with full-time Islamic schools. Before that, with part-time Islamic schools, and the last 23 years teaching teachers. So jumping into the International Society of Technology Educator and Standards, I'm doing a pilot right now with teachers and getting candidates for the elementary classroom to become involved in this organization because I believe in it. And most people around my work, around the area where professors are working with future teachers, are doing that because Iste, in fact, has a very different take. The Iste standards are very much around pedagogy. And if any of you have been in any of my ISNA Ed Forum talks lately, you know that I spend time talking about Islamic pedagogy. And what is Islamic pedagogy? And what is pedagogy? And how are we supposed to be teaching in the first place? And what does that mean to Muslims and Muslim schools? For many years, I've said things like, what makes your school Islamic? Why is this a Muslim school? And what I want us to do is to be on this 21st century wave where we make our schools unique, and the character and the moral compass, all of these things can be fit in with what we're looking at today as, out there kind of education. Like, we're worried about the safety. We should be worried if we don't use the technology, if we're not on the internet. So I start tonight with the administrators portion of the Iste standards. Iste has made standards for administrators, for educators, and for students. So first of all, when I teach, I'm an educator, just like teacher candidates in my classroom, just like the teachers in the Islamic school. We are all under the educator standards. School administrators are under the administrator standards, the one you have in front of you now, such that if we define what administrators need to know and be able to do in order to discharge their responsibility as leaders, they have to be visionary, which is exactly what we're hoping at the ISLA that we are, is visionary leaders, so that we realize that what needs to happen is huge and, in fact, quite Islamic. Now, people might like to discuss that further or think about that a little bit, but we're living in a fast-paced world, and we need to lead with our moral compass, with our belief and understanding about what this is all about. Educating children for the times that they're living in. And so the next one is the digital age learning culture. It is a very different learning culture. When kids are not writing spelling words 5 times each because they're doing something dynamic with the spelling words, like using them in meaningful ways, perhaps in an infographic, perhaps in an ebook. Administrators are the one who set the culture for that. Administrators are the one who step out and say, we're going to raise our children as good citizens, good digital citizens with good Islamic practices and principles. And therefore, we're going to lead the way in understanding the benefits and the doubtful parts of what's out there. And we cannot teach children without teaching children in a trustworthy way. So teaching with trust, and that's part of that culture. believing in our kids. The third one is excellence in professional practice, and that's how we grow ourselves. And I've always felt, and people who know me would know that I say things like, you know, all of us, when we take a position in any place, we're going to have to grow and develop. So all educators in Islamic schools, you know, who are not seeking a new certification, nowadays it's a badge, a new badge, without seeking something, then we're not following good Islamic principles, but we're also not following good professional practice. We need to be lifelong learners. And so right now, today, we can make our professional development something that we do like this, not quite face-to-face, but we need to have that excellence in professional practice that comes from a very deep passion for learning. And I know how many of you out there are already doing this. I know the dedication and the sincerity with which our Islamic schools are built. And I know that we're not playing games in the computer lab the way we once were. Not just us. That's how it started. The next one, the fourth one, is systemic improvement. Right there we have all of your accreditation documents. As you enter all of them into the system, go online. So there's no way around thinking that our systemic improvement around education, I mean, how much will we save if we don't use textbooks, if we access materials on the internet? I know it's not always ideal. It's not ideal for everyone. But look at also the certain group of our students that we've never served, and we haven't served them in the masjids either. So we want to make sure that we realize that, you know, our children and families are just like any of the general population. We have those less intellectually blessed, physically handicapped. We have the less abled. And so systemic improvement might mean that we find ways and spaces for our schools to fill the need for all the students in our population. The last one for administrators is digital citizenship. And I kind of started with that because I think that's where a lot of people land in their worry about how we're using technology. And so I think, you know, we have to have, in order for the Iste standards to work, we have to have the leadership leading the way, so that we have a vision, a learning culture for the digital age, teachers on board with this excellence in professional practice, a deep-seated passion for improvement, and then all of us together for digital citizenship. And that includes, you know, making sure that our students understand, but also that our parents understand. One of my favorite articles that I've been sharing with my students is speaking of digital literacy, and it came out of Teaching Tolerance. Teaching Tolerance is one of my favorite journals, but it's not a technology journal, but it's free. And I ask my students always to subscribe. And I'm just going to give you like 4 words maybe from this new glossary of terms, if you will. Clickbait, Chan culture, belief perseverance, astroturfing, stealth marketing. Just some of the words that come across in the new speaking, the new language of digital literacy. So if we're not in that 21st century, then our administrators and our leaders really do need to be leading us in that direction and giving teachers security and students security. I'm sorry for the quality of this slide. I tried to enlarge it even, and it doesn't come out as clear as I would like for it to. But honestly, all of us probably on this call who are educators would want to follow this particular set of standards. I hope I do. I like to think I do. I go from the right hand at the top, learner, and I look at the hadith, I want to be a lifelong learner from the cradle to the grave. Learner, leader, citizen, collaborator, designer, facilitator, and an analyst. And those words follow very closely with the student standards. So if each one of us is focused on being each of those things, then it becomes very easy for us as educators to then get involved with all of our students, because we are empowering the students. You kind of probably don't see the title if your Zoom is the way mine is at the top, but it's the Iste standards for students, so that students leverage technology to take an active role in choosing, achieving, demonstrating competency in their learning goals. They need to own their own learning. They don't need to be writing essays and writing answers to questions in the back of the book or doing 57 math problems. They need to do the math problems that will lead them down the route to learning the next thing and the next thing, helping them unfold information. And that's the part about choosing and achieving and demonstrating competencies. Lots and lots of ways to demonstrate competencies. That we ask our students then to be digital citizens, that they're students who recognize the rights and responsibilities of others, and this is part of our Islam, that we have opportunities in life. And as we learn and work and we're interconnected in the digital world, we're going to know people from all over the world. I think it enhances us as Muslims. Our ummah is from the entire world. The adhan is going on throughout a 24-hour period, touching almost the adhan of another place, another time. Different time adhans, Fajr at one place and Isha at another. But this digital citizenship, when so many children around us haven't been off the block, haven't been to the local zoo. We have children with relatives across the world who are, in fact, in the news because of the suffering. But knowing the world in the way I'm suggesting that we could is something that would allow us to be leaders in the world, and leading our children into a world that we'll probably never see is a huge responsibility. But to equip them now with the Quran, with the meaning of the Quran, and with the tools to live in a forward or future-looking world, it's quite an undertaking. The third one is knowledge constructor. And if our children are knowledge constructors, then there's a variety of resources that they're using, the digital tools, to connect knowledge, to produce creative artifacts. No need, as I said, for constant writing of essays and answering questions in the back of the book. We can equip our children to write their own ebook. And that's one artifact, creative artifact, but there are many, many more. Vimeos, videos, infographics. I'm a Sunday school teacher and principal as well. And I have my students in the high school class creating infographics. And they really created them in a very few minutes. But they created them, for example, around Surah Al-Furqan, where there are 14 things that those who are blessed do. And it was very enlightening to approach, being a good person, not listening to bad language by avoiding it, walking away from it because it's in the surah, and many more, illicit relationships. Those who are blessed are not in those relationships. So they were digging it out. We were putting it in an infographic and constructing knowledge in a different way. So it wasn't, somebody shaking a finger and somebody, telling the kids to recite. We needed the meaning, and we needed to take it apart, and we needed to use it in our lives. And so knowledge construction in this way, with artifacts, with meaningful learning experiences for themselves and others, is a powerful way for us to proceed in the world that we live in. Innovative designer, I don't even know where to start. I can't possibly finish to define it because it's a design process, creating new, useful, and imaginative solutions. I used to joke and say that in the Universal School gym, I needed to unroll the carpet in the gym floor, and then I needed to roll it back up so that it wasn't folded and stinky and smelly, but that it would be aired out by being rolled up. It was an invention that I never invented. But why can't we be in our solution mode and leading as Islamic schools? And we are. I don't mean to slight us. I mean to all of us to come together and join hands in some of these new ways. Computational thinker, creative communicator, and global collaborator. I mean, these are just a few more of the student standards. And as teachers write their lesson plans, if you could convince everyone to join Iste, they don't pay me to say that. I say that because I believe that Iste is not technology standards, it's a pedagogy. It's a way of teaching in a world that is unfolding before our eyes. It's a very exciting time to teach and to learn. If I might, I could just say that a good lesson plan, really is a living document. It doesn't end, it's continuous. It goes to tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Every lesson, every time we begin with our children should connect to yesterday, a reminder where we are, and should connect to tomorrow, where we're going. And we should be looking at interdisciplinary teaching as well, and curriculum integration, which is the third topic. So this is April. April, we have this topic. May, we have a second topic, and a third topic is curriculum integration. So I'm going to look and see. I haven't been able to get my chat box to open, so I haven't seen what you've written. And I think you can unmute yourselves, but I used a different system than I normally do, so I haven't been able to see that. I really am pleased that all of you are here. I see the unmute button on your screen. If anyone has a comment, I think that there's an opportunity there. I don't know if there's anyone who would like to speak.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Seema. This is Fauzia speaking.
Assalamu alaikum.
I think the chat box, if you go on the top toolbar, on the right-hand side, there's 3 dots. If you click on that, the chat box should be one of the choices.
Yes. So we have people from Pasadena, California, from North Carolina, from Texas, another Carolina. We have someone from Milwaukee. We have someone from Bridgeview. We have someone from another North Carolina. We have Toronto and Maryland. And I'm sure you could see that also. I was trying to unclick it, and I finally did. Thank you, Fauzia. Are there questions or comments? I promised I would keep this a 30-minute. I wonder, you might type in your thoughts about this process, because if you like this process, how would you like it to be? I think we're going to keep 3 scheduled monthly webinars followed by a Twitter chat so that we spend some time on the topic. So on Thursday of this week, our Twitter chat will have 7 questions or comments that I will pose every 7 minutes, approximately. So we can chat for about 30 minutes. Questions or thoughts?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Dr. Seema, this is Ada Uday from Raleigh, North Carolina, IT officer at Iman School.
Yes.
I think this is an excellent initiative. I just wanted to commend you. It's an excellent topic. I just want to share something for the group. As we're talking about incorporating technology and bringing in like different laptops and devices, into our students' hands, I think it's very important. Like one of the things you addressed was security. And at Iman School, we were able to bring in now about 260 Chromebooks. And if you look at the public school, I'm speaking, from the IT perspective. If you look at the public schools, everyone's moving to Chromebooks, and the reason for that is they have an administrative layer or service that governs the security on the operating system level. And basically what that means is you can basically filter content, and there's other add-ons you can get, and you can filter based on the operating system. What that means is it doesn't matter which Wi-Fi point they connect to, whether it's in the school or let's say someone brings their own, personal hotspot and tries to connect to it, it will still filter. So I just want to recommend Chromebooks for anyone who's thinking about bringing technology. It is the easiest by far, especially with our limited resources, to use Chromebooks. That's all I wanted to share.
Welcome comment, Brother Allah, except you're talking to an iPad person.
Well, it's harder. It's much harder to govern from the IT and administrative perspective. I'm a Microsoft person, but when it comes to schools and laptops, Chromebooks beat everyone by far because of that, how easy they are to govern.
I think part of that's true, but I think the educational opportunity on the iPad is huge. And we have some iPad cohorts so that we're preparing teachers with iPads. But I know what you're saying. And I think what we have to do actually is realize that an awful lot of what we can do, and I'm sure this is your field, I know, is to use the tools in ways that, and I have a formula actually called Triple E. If we're teaching and using technology, it should be measurable on the Triple E methodology so that it gets a certain number of points. Otherwise, we're using technology for the wow factor and not for the actual pedagogical use of it. So I welcome Chromebooks too. And lots of Web 2.0 tools, lots of things that are out there that are static that we just sign into can also be very useful. And I think we need a lot of training so that all of us can manage this huge undertaking. So we need to be ready for that because security will be very important. And I really appreciate the comment. I better read for a second because I've got about 2 minutes and I feel like we should stick to it. And then, email folks, email us and let's talk a little bit about, what works. I'm not sure if Shaza asked how public schools in the U.S. are using ISTE standards. I see they're international standards. Yeah, they originated from the International Society of Technology Educators, so they are worldwide. In fact, if anyone wants to go to the conference, it's in June this year. Some of my students are going to be presenting at the preclinical part on the National Lewis campus on June 23rd, and then the conference is at McCormick Place, and it's 24, 25, 26, 27 of June. But becoming a member of ISTE means you get a lot of discounts, but also becoming a member, it's 150 maybe. You get a lot of discounts on materials, but you always have a lot of resources that you can use for free as well. So yeah, they're international, and the world is using these standards. Many, many people will be coming from around the world. And would you treat these standards as we would the Common Core, for example? These would frame IT curriculum at our schools? No, they're actually pedagogical standards as well. And that means it's the vehicle for learning. It's, it's the way science would be delivered, the way reading would be, recorded, information, using digital technology, as I mentioned on a few cases there, ebooks, videos, interviews. I mean, we could basically do research with our kids to record the history of the world, of what's happening today, by having our students interview and record and capture stories. And that would be a great communication standard for Common Core standards. So they do not just overlap, they weave in a variety of ways. And I think that's, kind of like best practices. Yes, that's true. If you indulge in some of the materials on the Iste Standards website, and they have so many, you'll see how the media literacy, how the digital equity, all of these things, you'll see how they overlay from a method of teaching, a method of learning, and ways that we haven't been learning and teaching, because it's now, the top of the triangle of Bloom's taxonomy is now create. It's no longer, passive. It's active. Drawing pictures, doing art and illustrations, getting kids to do their own Twitter chat about a story, and things can be closed. They don't have to be open. So we can close things with Edmodo, for example, to use the social media that would be closed to our class. Anyway, folks, I really appreciate you being here. I feel so blessed. I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to be together and for actually getting, I think I saw 16 people at one point. And I am grateful for the support from the ISLA team to say, okay, just go ahead and do it, because, sometimes you feel like you're all thumbs. I did some webinars with the university, and one of the advices was always just step out and do it. So I encourage all of you also to go ahead and try some of the things that, that you think you should or could be trying, because, the results might surprise you and me, I'm going to close asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us wisdom, to give us courage. Allah give us the blessing of knowing how to please you, how to honor you, and how to raise our children so that they honor you, and how to reach out and reach beyond the schools where full-time classrooms exist, where children come, because there are so many Muslim children that are not there. Ya Allah, help us find them, and help us find ways for them to be in Sunday schools or weekend schools or Islamic schools, and ways for them to be close to you. So, Ya Allah, guide us, give us wisdom. Ameen. See you all on the IECN. Assalamu alaikum.